What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Fantasy Trade Targets here on the Fantasy Stock Exchange. I got a familiar face joining me here today, and that is Mr. Kyle Bennett of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Kyle, how are you?
I'm fantastic, man. I'm glad to be back. We love talking the stonks, and we got some selling and some buying to do. So I'm excited to get into it.
Absolutely, man. Stonks are rising and falling this week, I should say. Yeah, it's funny. Before Kyle and I hopped in here, my initial intro literally came out like a blumbered up mess. I said, "Welcome." So it's been that kind of day, but nonetheless, I'm super excited to go ahead and start talking fantasy football. As we record this right now, it is 5:45, an hour and 15 minutes before the Titans-Bills game kicks off. So if anything happens in that game, I'm sorry, but we're not going to talk about it because we can't see the future.
The Tennessee Doorknob Lickers.
Oh, my gosh. I'm so annoyed with them. But either way, at least we get Tuesday Night Football out of it. It's kind of unique, so there's a silver lining and everything. Speaking of silver lining, let's get into some buy low candidates, and I'm going to highlight my first guy. I don't know how he has not been labeled the best buy low candidate in all of fantasy football right now. That's going to be Mr. Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the Kansas City Chiefs. So there are a lot of reasons why I think you can go out and buy low on him right now. The only thing that is potentially stopping someone from selling Clyde Edwards is the fact that he was more than likely their first or early second round pick in the drafts this year. But if you look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire through 5 weeks, he has yet to see 20 PPR fantasy points in a single week. He has not had a touchdown since week 1. And even last week, he only had 10 rushing attempts for 40 yards. I mean, granted, he had 8 targets, which is always awesome. But nonetheless, very unimpressive over the last couple of weeks with his stat lines. And I know some owners are starting to get a little fed up with putting a guy in their lineup each week that's kind of capped out, it seems, at 12 or 13 points. But I'm one of the people that is not panicking on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. In fact, if there is someone in my league that is souring on him, I am pouncing every chance I get. So if you look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he is top 6 in the league in rushing attempts. He is top 9 in the league in terms of running back targets right now. And he is on, obviously, the most explosive offense in the entire National Football League. If he starts finding the end zone, and like I said, he hasn't found the end zone since week 1, but if he starts finding the end zone, he's going to be an absolute smash weekly play. If you combine his rushing attempts and his weekly targets, he is seeing at least 18 looks every single week over the past 5 weeks. I mean, any running back that's seeing that kind of volume, that kind of opportunity, obviously you're going to want him in your lineup. So if someone's souring on Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now in your league, I'd go after him. Even if when I say buy low, you're not going to be able to get him for pennies. I mean, he was still someone's first round pick, but you're not going to have to pay what you had to get, or you're not going to have to pay what you would have had to pay had you tried to get Clyde Edwards after the first week or 2 of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to get him like quarters on the dollar maybe. And I mean, the volume is there, and that's what you like to see if you're going to go out and try to buy low on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, like you said, he's in the most explosive offense in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes is bound to start getting him the ball. And now that Sammy Watkins is going to be out for a little bit with his injury situation, would not be shocked to see Clyde Edwards to start getting involved more in the passing game, check downs, situational passing games, and that could lead to potential, looks in the red zone as well.
Yeah, and I got to say, when it comes to the red zone with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if anyone from the Chiefs organization happens to be watching this, stop doing that stupid jet sweep weirdo thing with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It is such a waste, a wasted opportunity in the red zone. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's so slippery. He's not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he can run through guys, or run around guys, I should say, because he's that slippery. But stop taking away all the forward momentum.
It's so bad. The whole object of football is to go forward.
I know. I can't stand it. Every now and then, if you want to do it, fine. But it's a play that's become so predictable. I think they've run it with him at least once or twice every single game, and clearly he hasn't found the end zone with it yet. So I would like to see them fix that. But again, they're the Chiefs. They are ran by one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, Andy Reid, and they're going to figure it out for him. I mean, obviously, like you said, he's getting the volume. It's only a matter of time before he starts finding the end zone. And once he starts finding the end zone, his floor is going to be so much safer. And obviously we still haven't seen his ceiling game yet. We haven't seen that big, with the exception of week 1 when he didn't even have any receptions or anything like that. I think we saw his rushing ceiling where it was like 140 yards and a touchdown. He looked fantastic in week 1. But we just need him to put it all together. We need Andy Reid to figure him out and go out and buy him before they finally do that, because I think that's on the horizon. They did not spend a first-round pick on this guy for him to be doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah. And I'll go with my first buy low. If you can't get your hands on Clyde Edwards, go get a guy that's probably going to be bought low in the NFL as well. Talking about Le'Veon Bell. Came out today as we were sitting down to record this. The Jets are trying to trade him sooner rather than later. That's music to my ears if I'm a fantasy football manager. That Le'Veon Bell is sitting on somebody's bench because he hasn't done anything with the New York Jets, because Adam Gase is an absolute joke. He doesn't like Lev Bell, never wanted Lev Bell. He was signed before Adam Gase was brought in. And, this is a situation where if he ends up on a team, because they're thinking that they can get a mid-round draft pick for him, there's an opt-out in his contract after the season, so contenders have an opportunity to go out and get him. It's not just going to be teams that are running back needy. There's an opportunity here for Lev to end up in a situation that is perfect for him. I was talking about it with a coworker today. Look at the Arizona Cardinals right now. They've got Kenyon Drake, who I personally think is injured. He had that walking boot before the season started. He's running kind of like 2019 David Johnson was running, just kind of plodding. Chase Edmonds, I don't think is a long-term answer. Could you imagine Kyler Murray with Le'Veon Bell? Like, that's some fun things to think about there. And, there's other options as well when it comes to Lev Bell. And if Le'Veon Bell gets traded in real life, you're going to want to buy before he gets traded in real life.
You watch your mouth with the Chase Edmonds slander, friend. You have never met anyone that's higher on Chase Edmonds than I am. I think he is totally the long-term solution in Arizona. But we're talking about Le'Veon Bell here, and I totally agree to have him as a buy low. I think it's very likely that he gets traded from the Jets. If it's not this week, it's going to be next week. If it's not next week, it's going to be the week after that. He's getting dealt before the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. You're going to want to buy him before he gets dealt, because any situation that he lands in that isn't the New York Jets is going to be an upgrade in situation for him. Like, seriously, no matter where he goes, it's only going to go up from there. And obviously, if a team trades for him, they're actually going to want to use him. I still am so baffled at the fact that the Jets went out and got Le'Veon Bell, and then they got Adam Gase, and Adam Gase said, well, we're not really going to use him. So
I like Kalen Ballage and Frank Gore.
God, it's such a mess. But I completely agree. I would very happily go out and buy Lev Bell low. I definitely, no matter where he goes, I don't think he's going to return RB1 value at this point, but I do think he could be a solid RB2 depending on the situation he lands in. And even with the Jets right now, he's a decent flex play, I'd say, even though Adam Gase doesn't use him to his full ability. We know what Le'Veon Bell can do. We know he's super talented. He really hasn't lost a step, in my opinion. I think he's just fine. It's just he's on the Jets. So you never know when he can bust out a big play here and there, even if he does get stuck on New York. I like him as a buy low candidate.
And I'll give you one more place that could be a long-term option because, their running backs, they're good. They're not great. Imagine Lev Bell in an offense that includes, John Brown, Stephon Diggs, and Josh Allen.
I like that, especially with the issues that they've been having with Zach Moss already. He is I'm saying tonight because we're recording this on Tuesday, but you guys are obviously seeing this on Thursday. But tonight he's a scratch for the Buffalo Bills. I believe he's injured still, but never good to have your rookies injured and be out for multiple weeks like that. So Bell could be, a temporary option for Buffalo. I know they really like Devin Singletary. I know they just drafted Zach Moss, but a guy like Lev Bell to have that veteran running back on that squad would be a pretty big deal. So I definitely like that call. And then I know you have a couple sell highs too. I will let you take it away with one of those.
Yeah, so we're going to sell high on a guy that we just mentioned, Chase Edmonds.
Don't you dare.
This is a situation where they obviously are coming off a big game against the New York Jets. The Cardinals are. You don't really know what the situation's going to be like with that backfield moving forward. Both running backs found the end zone. Is this going to end up being kind of a 50-50 timeshare? Who's going to be the number one in this backfield? Obviously, Chase Edmonds is running the ball far better than Kenyon Drake is right now and looks like the clear-cut, quote-unquote, RB1 in the offense right now. Things in the running game look smoother with Chase Edmonds. So if you're Chase Edmonds' owner, why would you not go out and, try to capitalize and get, a plethora of things for a guy who's coming off a big game? You don't know what his role is going to be moving forward in the long term, and try to capitalize on, a dominant performance against the New York Jets.
Yeah, see, I highlighted Chase Edmonds as a buy low a couple of weeks ago, and I definitely think a couple of weeks ago he most definitely was a buy low candidate, especially with so many people still banging the drum for Kenyon Drake and everything like that. I definitely wouldn't call him a buy low after a 20-point game. I disagree in calling him a sell high, but that's because I'm one of those people that genuinely believes in Chase Edmonds. I'm genuinely invested in Chase Edmonds in my dynasty leagues because I just think he's that good and that amazing. But if you do want to sell on Chase Edmonds, his value is the highest it has been to date, coming off of a big
could ever be.
Exactly. Everything that I love about Chase Edmonds, it's all speculation. But looking at this past week, that he just had a 20-point week. There are people in your league like me who is significantly higher on Chase Edmonds than a lot of people. So if you can capitalize and sell Chase Edmonds high, it's not the worst idea. The only way that I would consider him a sell high is if you could really sell him high. I'm not just accepting a slightly good offer for Chase Edmonds. Me personally, if I'm going to sell him at this point, it would take an excellent offer, but I guess that's when you capitalize on selling high.
How would you feel about this? We'll mention two guys that have been brought up in potentially a, league where the manager of one Clyde Edwards-Helaire is souring on him, a 1-for-1 swap.
I have a hard time believing anyone would actually do that.
Fair.
I mean, in all fairness, that is a case where I'm definitely selling high on Chase Edmonds. I definitely think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't know. Someone who's done decent. Okay. Would you trade Chase Edmonds for a guy who is guaranteed a ton of volume, like David Montgomery?
That's a good question. I'm 50-50 on it.
See, because I feel like David Montgomery, he's got the volume, but he doesn't really have the efficiency. Chase Edmonds, he's got the efficiency, but he doesn't really have the volume. So I guess it depends on the kind of situation you're in and what you need. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird situation, but like you said, I mean, Chase Edmonds, for a lot of people, he's going to be a sell high candidate. If you can get a great offer on Chase Edmonds, I would definitely explore, Kyle would definitely explore into trading him. It's going to take a hell of a lot to get Chase off of my team. But speaking of sell highs, I also have a couple sell highs, and I'm going to highlight my first one. It's going to be Emmanuel Sanders of the New Orleans Saints. Manny Sandy is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I was banging the drum on Emmanuel Sanders coming into this season. I was saying that he was going to be the league's most underrated wide receiver 3 for fantasy purposes. And he has showed up in a big way over the first 5 weeks. I mean, granted, the first week or two, he came along a bit slow, but it's funny. When I was watching Monday Night Football, they had mentioned that they sat down with Emmanuel Sanders, and Emmanuel Sanders literally had to tell Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas is such a crybaby, by the way.
Oh, the worst.
Emmanuel Sanders had to tell Mike Thomas in the middle of the week 1 game, hey, dude, I've been here for a month. We didn't have preseason. We barely had a training camp. We didn't have OTAs. What the hell do you want me to do? I'm still learning out here. Come on. But while Michael Thomas is out, Emmanuel Sanders has been tearing it up. On Monday Night Football, he had 12 catches on 14 targets for 122 yards. and he has looked really good, at least for the last 3 weeks. But I am going to try to capitalize at him as a sell high target. And the reason why is because he's not seeing 14 targets in a single game when Michael Thomas gets back. I'm going to be surprised if Emmanuel Sanders can set a floor of even, I'd say, 6 or 7 targets a game. Because Michael Thomas, when he is there, it is the Michael Thomas show. And that's going to resume as soon as week 6 starts, when he's not suspended for punching his own teammate in the face anymore.
He might punch Drew Brees in the face if he throws to Emmanuel Sanders that many times when he's back.
Yeah, seriously. I definitely think that going forward with Michael Thomas back, Emmanuel Sanders is going to be a solid, I would say mid to low end wide receiver 3 or flex option. But as of right now, with the couple of weeks that he strung together and him coming off of a 14 target game, 120-yard game, I think you could sell him kind of as like a high end wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2. And I think you will get more value in selling off Emmanuel Sanders now than actually using him for the rest of the year once Michael Thomas is back. Plus, you got to look at it this way. He had 14 targets in a game where Alvin Kamara was used the least amount that he's been used all season. So for what that's worth, I don't think this is a repeatable performance for Emmanuel Sanders for the remainder of the season with the Saints, and I'm going to try to capitalize on this big performance.
Can we just all agree that the Taysom Hill usage is too damn high? The thing that you can do as well, if you are currently rostering Emmanuel Sanders, is if you're trying to sell high, tell the person you're in trade talks with, Michael Thomas is still going to be dealing with an ankle injury. He's not going to be 100% the rest of the season. That could linger. It could pop back up again, and that immediately puts Emmanuel Sanders right back on the map to being in the range he's in right now. And like Mikey said, he had 12 catches, which was a career high. Think about all of the teams Emmanuel Sanders has been on in his career, between the 49ers last season, the Denver Broncos all those years, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Never had 12 catches in a game.
And he's been the quote-unquote wide receiver 1 on rosters before.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there is opportunity. There is volume in that offense. And, I mean, maybe we'll see Jameis at some point, hopefully, because Drew Brees needs to hit up Jameis's LASIK doctor because looks a little blind out there. But, I mean, the thing with Michael Thomas coming back, obviously it's going to gash Emmanuel Sanders, target shares. But that injury is something that you can use in your trade talks with whomever it may be, and let them know just because Michael Thomas is back doesn't mean this injury is going away anytime soon. This is your perfect opportunity to capitalize on dealing Emmanuel Sanders at peak value.
Absolutely. And then I have another buy low here today, and I'm actually surprised that I'm calling him as a buy low because I really have never been a massive JuJu Smith-Schuster fan, but I'm calling JuJu Smith-Schuster as a very phenomenal buy low candidate right now. Given his recent performance, he's coming off of this week where he only had 5 targets. Obviously, it was the Chase Claypool show over there. Everyone this week, their eyes are on Chase Claypool. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever it was, everyone's eyes were on Deontay Johnson. At the end of last season, everybody's eyes were on James Washington. There was a lot going on this receiving core in Pittsburgh. But the one consistent, the one guy who's always getting his looks, who's always going to be Ben's favorite target at the end of the day, it's going to be JuJu Smith-Schuster. He's still the wide receiver 1 on their team. Although Chase Claypool is going to have his big weeks, Deontay Johnson is going to have his big weeks. At the very least, JuJu Smith-Schuster is probably always going to be the second highest targeted player at minimum on this offense. We know what he can do. We know he's super talented. The reason why he is, performing not as well as the Chase Claypools and the Deontay Johnson is JuJu's the number 1 receiver. He is getting the harder matchups. Defenses are actually scheming against him. I promise you the Eagles did not go into yesterday or Sunday's game saying, we gotta mark up Chase Claypool. He's going to go off for 4 touchdowns on us if not. So JuJu gets things schemed against him, but he still seems to find his way open. He still has a very safe floor, and we know that his ceiling is just as high as anyone else's over there in Pittsburgh. With the amount that JuJu has kind of, I don't want to say he's disappointed this year, but he hasn't lived up to his ADP just yet. I would still rather have him over Chase Claypool. And for example, like the Chase Claypool hype right now is the highest it will ever be. A 4-touchdown performance for anyone is absurd. A 4-touchdown performance for a rookie is unheard of. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if for some reason the JuJu owner in your league is crazy enough to actually want Chase Claypool over JuJu Smith-Schuster, I would immediately take JuJu over Chase Claypool any day of the week. How do you feel about JuJu as a buy low candidate?
Yeah, I would totally buy low on JuJu for the rest of the season. And in dynasty-wise, JuJu's in a contract year. He's not going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler after this year, in my opinion. They're not going to pay him that money. He's going to go somewhere where, one, he can get the money, and two, he's going to be the solidified, bona fide number one wide receiver. Love him on the Philadelphia Eagles. JuJu is going to continue to put up numbers past this season, more than likely in a different offense. So, I mean, if you can buy low on JuJu, especially in Dynasty right now, by all means, go out and do it, because there is a plethora of points to have with JuJu Smith-Schuster. The talent is there. We all have seen what JuJu is capable of. He's had a 2-touchdown game this year already. And, I mean, moving forward, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is clicking on all cylinders right now. Ben looks the best he has since his injury. So the targets are going to be there. And I think this past week against the Eagles, it was obvious that they were scheming for plays to go to Chase Claypool to beat the Eagles defense, and it just wasn't JuJu's week. JuJu's going to get those opportunities. There's still plenty of points on the board for him. If you can go and buy low on JuJu, that's a potential league-winning move.
And you know what? JuJu's got one of the best personalities in the entire NFL, too. So you got someone to root for on a personal level as well if you can go out and acquire him. But
and he's on the all-name team.
He is. JuJu Smith-Schuster doesn't get much better than that. I like I said, I never thought that I would be someone that says, oh, I'm going to go out and buy JuJu Smith-Schuster. But his value, in my opinion, his value is kind of at an all-time low right now. And I think I'm more than happy with dishing out what I need to get JuJu on my team at this point in time. I know you have one more sell high of the day. I know we're going to be a little conflicted on this guy, but let me hear who you got.
Seems like we are conflicted on my sell highs, but go sell high on Darius Slayton. Had a monster game against the Cowboys. Obviously, the Cowboys defense is more porous than SpongeBob. There was just it was scripted perfectly for him to have the game he did. The Giants' offensive line cannot protect to save Daniel Jones's life. He's running all around the field every single time he hikes the ball. Like, he's got to be sweating every single time that he yells hike, because he knows that defenses are going to be mauling him. There's nobody to really pass protect for him. Sure, Devontae Freeman is an upgrade in the backfield, and he's looked like, you know, there's still some life in his legs as a running back. But I mean, overall, this Giants team is in shambles, and I don't know if there's going to be that many more big-time games from Darius Slayton this season to where you have an opportunity to capitalize on those points he had against the Cowboys. So if you can sell high and get, you know, some players of value, maybe you sell Darius Slayton high and get a Chase Edmonds or something like that onto your team and fix a different position you might need, because typically Darius Slayton is probably your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 if all things are going right for your roster right now. And I mean, if there's an opportunity to upgrade at a position of need and capitalizing on a big game from Darius Slayton, by all means, I would go do it in a heartbeat.
I like that you pointed out if things are going right, he's your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, because in my Dynasty League right now, I lost Godwin, Julio, and A.J. Brown, and I was using Darius Slayton as my wide receiver 1 for a while. It's total mess. Actually paid off well this week. But I don't fully disagree with you on Darius Slayton, I will say. I'm kind of right in the middle on whether or not I'd prefer him as a hold or a sell high. If you are going to sell high, this is definitely the time to do it. You want to have him go off in a week. He does dud out a lot. You're not going to be able to sell him after he duds out. A big reason why I would consider him as a sell high is because, one, he's not going to play a secondary as awful as Dallas is every week. And don't get me wrong. I think Darius Slayton's a very talented receiver. I think that he could develop into the Giants' undisputed wide receiver one over the next couple of years. I really do like Darius Slayton as a long-term kind of guy. But until the Giants fix their offensive line, they're not really going to be able to provide much help to Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones is constantly under duress, he's going to have less time to get it to Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is that home run hitting type of guy. So he's not going to be able to air the ball out to Darius Slayton as much as we'd like him to. So I will admit I'm on the fence. I don't hate him as a sell high. I don't hate him as a hold. I'm kind of in the middle on him, but I totally understand why you would bring him up.
I will say he has 5 very favorable matchups potentially before the Giants Week 11 bye. Week 6, the Giants play the Washington football team. Granted, their defensive line is unbelievable, so that could cause issues for Daniel Jones getting the ball to Darius Slayton, but that secondary is abysmal. And then short week, Thursday Night Football, they travel to play the Philadelphia Eagles. He's probably going to get the Darius Slayton combo matchup, which will be fun for the broadcasters. So, I mean, that could take away from value there. Then he gets the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on 10 days rest. Then they're at Washington, and then November 15th, they play the Eagles again. So 4 divisional matchups against the same teams within the next 5 games, and then Tampa Bay, who has a somewhat beatable secondary. So, I mean, there is opportunity for Darius Slayton to have games that will produce high points, but, you know, look at the games in between that week 1 matchup against Pittsburgh and then this past week against Dallas. 6.3 full point PPR points, 8.3 and 7.8. Granted, the target share is there. He hasn't had less than 6 targets in a game this season, but it's all about Daniel Jones being able to get the ball to him, and to only have 2 boom weeks for a boom or bust type of wide receiver right now this season for Darius Slayton, who also only has 2 touchdowns this year. Go out and potentially upgrade your roster if you're able to.
Yeah, I think at that point I might be fine with selling him off. But again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Selling high on Darius Slayton is in the eye of Kyle Bennett. It's I'm definitely on the fence with that, but I definitely don't hate it as a call. And then I have one more guy before we wrap it up here. It's another sell high. We're staying popular with these receivers. I believe receivers made up 3 of our 4 sell highs now. And that's Brandin Cooks of the Houston Texans. He had a day, man. He had a day and a half in week 5. He had 12 targets, caught 8 of them, had a touchdown, had over 160 yards. I mean, he looked like the Brandin Cooks of old, you know, the Brandin Cooks where he just casually dropped 1,000 yards receiving every year for like 3 or 4 years in a row. He looked like that again. But I don't think he is that Brandin Cooks anymore, and I don't think he can be that Brandin Cooks on the Houston Texans. You know, don't get me wrong, he's good, but he is such a volatile receiver. I mean, this time a week or 2 ago, he laid a goose egg. You know, he had 0 fantasy points in, I forget if it was either week 3 or week 4, but still very recent, a very big step to go from 161 yards and a touchdown to literally 0 catches. In my opinion, Brandin Cooks is more of, and I think this kind of spells itself out, but I think he's more of a boom or bust type player. I would personally rather be starting a safer receiver with a slightly lower ceiling rather than going with a guy like Brandin Cooks, who, as we saw, his floor is quite literally 0 points. And at the end of the day, Will Fuller's still the quote-unquote wide receiver 1 on the Houston Texans team. I do think Deshaun Watson trusts Will Fuller more. Will Fuller, knock on wood, I don't have any wood near me right now, but knock on wood that Will Fuller can actually stay healthy for the duration of the season. Now, don't get me wrong. If Will Fuller goes down, Brandin Cooks, he's less volatile. He's going to be leaned on heavily, and that's all good and dandy. But for right now, on October 13th, 2020 at 6:15 p.m., Brandin Cooks is volatile. He's behind Will Fuller. And if you're really looking that far ahead, His season matchups aren't horrendous, but once you get into the playoff push time and you get actually into the playoffs, I mean, Brandin Cooks has to go against Indianapolis twice in 2 weeks and Chicago, all in a 3-week period between week 13 and week 15. He's not going to have boom weeks against any of those guys. So if you need that final, win to get into the playoffs in week 13, he's not going to be an option. If you need those wins in the playoffs, and you will need those wins in the playoffs, it's probably not going to be an option. So after he goes off for a massive week like this, it's the perfect time to sell a guy like Brandin Cooks.
Yeah, I agree that you should be trying to sell Brandin Cooks right now, but I also think with the sending off into the void of Billy O'Stooge, Bill O'Brien, there's potential that we could see some more consistency from Brandin Cooks now that Romeo Crennel is the interim coach. It certainly seemed like Deshaun Watson loved throwing him the ball on Sunday. And I mean, it could have just been because of the matchup. It is the Jaguars divisional game. Things get wonky in divisional games. Brandin Cooks' next 3 matchups, they're at Tennessee. If that game happens, who knows if Tennessee starts licking doorknobs again. They host Green Bay before the bye. So that game could be potential shootout material because of how well Aaron Rodgers has been playing and putting up points. And then out of the bye, they're at Jacksonville again. So, I mean, there's potential within the next 3 games that Brandin Cooks could see more volume. And this is an opportunity now that you saw this big giant game against the Jacksonville Jaguars for Brandin Cooks with a new coach, potentially new plays being run for Brandin Cooks. It seemed like with Bill O'Brien there, it was just Brandin Cooks was just kind of a fixture rather than being schemed into the offense. And that's where I kind of lean on wanting Brandin Cooks on my roster. But like you said, when it comes to, championship playoff crunch time for fantasy, you don't want to be playing Brandin Cooks against the Indianapolis Colts, the Chicago Bears, and they're at Chicago. With that, it's going to be freezing in December in Chicago. And then they get Cincinnati if you make it to your championship game. So, I mean, banking on getting to your championship game and letting Brandin Cooks play against a bad Cincinnati Bengals team, not the best idea, but it is also an opportunity to see. Maybe you hold on to Brandin Cooks for one more week and see what he does. But if you have an opportunity to sell high, somebody who's wide receiver desperate, by all means, go.
Yeah, and I know it seems kind of wild that we're bringing up fantasy playoffs already, but we're through week 5. There are, in most leagues, there's only 7 or 8 regular season games left before the fantasy playoff starts. Whether or not you start playoffs in week 13 or week 14 or even week 15, if you're in a smaller league or only 4 teams make the playoffs, we're getting pretty close to that halfway line, and you are going to have to start getting ready to stash players that are going to be in potential blow-up spots for easy matchups once the playoffs get a little closer. And I just don't think Brandin Cooks is that type. But like you said, he does have a few easy matchups coming up. You never know what's going to happen now that O'Brien is not calling the shots or not even in Houston anymore, I should say. So Brandin Cooks is definitely an intriguing option. And that's another one of the selling points that I would probably use is that he is that intriguing option. There is upside there now that Houston has been freed from O'Brien. So it really just depends on who you're trying to trade to. Like, for example, would you give me your Darius Slayton for my Brandin Cooks?
No.
Oh, okay. See, I thought you were going to say yes. I thought you'd prefer to have – so you would rather have Darius Slayton than Brandin Cooks, you think?
Yes, because I think when it comes to Darius Slayton, there's the volume and consistency, where with Brandin Cooks, you're more than likely just banking on the volume. You don't necessarily have the full-blown consistency.
Right, and that makes sense. And that's where I was pretty much thinking of too, in terms of preferring Darius Slayton over Brandin Cooks. But either way, I mean, Brandin Cooks, he's currently rostered in about 45% of Yahoo leagues, if I remember correctly. So he is owned in about half of Yahoo leagues. I know this isn't really talking to the masses. I'm only talking to half of you that may have Brandin Cooks. But if you have Brandin Cooks, I think you should at least explore some trade options, especially since he just went off for 161 yards and a score in week 5. But that's going to do it all here for us today on the Fantasy Stock Exchange for the fantasy trade targets heading into week 6. Kyle, let the people know where we can find your stuff.
So you can check me out on Twitter at KBIZZL311. Shout out to AOL Instant Messenger for the Twitter handle. And you guys can check out all of my sports coverage at Underground Sports Philadelphia, at Underground PHI on Twitter and Instagram. UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia.com is the website. You can search Underground Sports Philadelphia on your favorite podcast app as well. Check out our whole library of podcasts. Mikey makes appearances from time to time on them. And twitch.tv/undergroundsportsphi is where we do our live shows. We do our fantasy football morning show called The Breakfast Blitz, where Mikey also makes appearances. Tons of fun, tons of content coming out. And if you're also into the betting things, follow at Bet Underground, where we do a whole bunch of football, betting, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and definitely make sure you guys go out and check out what Underground Sports Philadelphia has cooking up. Like I was saying, they have quite literally a billion things going on.
At 4th and Goal USP is the Twitter handle for our fantasy football show.
See, exactly. You are one of the busiest people that I know. You are one of the most headstrong people that I know when it comes to taking on projects. You do an amazing work. And seriously, everyone, if you haven't already, make sure to check out Kyle's stuff. Give it some love. And while you're giving Kyle some love, make sure you give us some love. Hit that subscribe button below. Make sure you're following Fantasy Stock Exchange on Twitter. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at FF_Mikey10. And thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on here. Had a complete blast, as always. And that's going to do it for us. So I'll see you guys next week.